Yet, if any turbulence or problem comes ever in your life, somehow or the other, you will have that blessing of Jupiter coming in saving you guys as well. With this Jupiter, you will get opportunities to work far away from your birthplace, from your birth town. And more often than not, I've observed away from your country. Jupiter can bring extraordinary abilities for you to share your wisdom, knowledge, broadcast to the world, showcase what you've actually acquired over a period of time. And that can be very, very transformative as well. Hi, guys, welcome back to the Astrology. Today, we are continuing with our series of planets in all houses. And in this video, we are going to be talking about Jupiter. Jupiter's presence across all houses of Vedic chart. Now, before we get started with understanding the placement of Jupiter, let's try and understand, let's try and decode what this Jupiter is. Time and again, you would have heard me saying it that it is one of the most benefic planet. It is one of the most pious planet. It has one of the most pious aspects to it. All of it is true. Jupiter is the guru. He is the guide. He is the mentor of the entire ecosystem of planetary bodies. He is the guide, the mentor. And that is why you would have noted in the thumbnail as well that Jupiter denotes everything, which is prosperity, denotes piousness. But the first and foremost thing that you will understand with Jupiter is that it brings with itself wisdom. It brings with itself knowledge or your ability to learn and acquire knowledge. Now, folks, you have to understand this bit here that if somebody has a strong Jupiter, an exalted Jupiter, it definitely means that they will have wisdom in them. They might have good knowledge about certain subjects of life. But it will depend as to where this Jupiter is placed and how is that knowledge being acquired or used. It is not necessary that if you have a strong Jupiter, meaning you will be a good mathematician, you will be a good engineer, good doctor. Yes, that probability increases, but it has to form connection with your fifth house, Lagna, sixth house, 10th house, depending on how and what kind of outcomes you want to see. But in general, a person with good Jupiter will have knowledge in subject areas. They will be able to grasp different topics and extract the juices of what is the inference of what they've read, what they've learned. It is important for you to understand this construct because a person's knowledge translating into a skill will be seen through Mercury, but wisdom or how to utilize that knowledge for the larger good is seen through Jupiter. As simple as you would have noted multiple times your mothers or somebody in your family who might not have had a formal education in life, but they would be able to tell you that, yes, if I combine X, Y, Z things together, it is going to be a good, let's say, remedy for stomach pain. Now, that is a home remedy that they might have come up with. Jupiter will have some sort of an influence with respect to their motherly ability, with respect to curing, with respect to healing others. It would have a connection with the sixth or the fourth or the ascendant itself, or with the fifth for that matter, in terms of aspect or with respect to presence. Some connection will be there, or it will be in combination with the moon. You will realize that there are so many folks who might have not taken a formal education in the stream of finance, formal education in the stream of business, but they are so articulate in terms of their thought process that what is the most effective way to approach or solve a particular business problem. Now, mind you, I'm not telling you that they will be sharp in terms of understanding rate of interest and how should they manipulate the arbitrage around it, because that is what Mercury is going to give them. But Jupiter is going to give them that knowledge, that sense as to how to tackle the obstacle, how to overcome it. He's an advisor to the king, to the Surya himself, to the sun. And that is why wisdom and knowledge is the first thing that you see associated with Jupiter. And this is the reason somebody who has acquired that knowledge, somebody who has acquired that wisdom, also would have the ability to share that across. And thereby you will notice that many a times Jupiter is the reason for a person to take up professions that require consultation. So you could be consulting someone, you could be a teacher, you could be an advisor, you could be a mentor. And depending on what combinations are coming into play, you will realize that this ability of yours will translate in that area. So, a Jupiter in a martial sign or in combination with Mars could make you a sports coach. Not necessarily strong with sports yourself, but you could be very good at coaching somebody in sports. Same Pisces with Mars, very good combination for that. You could train somebody for swimming, for water related sports, or sports of any kind. It could make you a teacher in a combination with Saturn. You could be a technical coach as well with Mars and so with Saturn. But you could be to understand how this construct is working, and it is important for you because bunch of you post questions that Dave, how will it work for my chart, my combination? I am talking about houses and its placement right now. We will get into this signs as well, and that would be the next series that I will start. So you have to comprehend that how a placement with conjunction in a particular house, without conjunction in a particular house, and in a particular sign is working out for you. And then you have to connect that with the dasha system as well. You have to connect with the Lord of the houses as well. And that is how you will get a very comprehensive way to understand how astrology is working for you. Now, this Jupiter can thus make you a counselor, it can make you a teacher, it can make you a mentor of sorts. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in a profession of teaching. Understand this. You could be a very good coach to your friend. You could be a good mentor to your child, to your kid. You could actually be in a role where you are mentoring your subordinates at your workplace. You understand how the construct of Jupiter is going to come, even if it is not responsible for your full time job. And that is why the dignity of this Jupiter becomes extremely critical. Then, this Jupiter tends to bring in expansion and abundance. Why expansion and abundance? When somebody has gained that sort of knowledge, when somebody has found that sort of a wisdom that they are able to comprehend what is the right and the wrong approach, or what is a better approach to take to solve a problem, when they have reached a point that they can advise others as well, they can help others also pick right or wrong. That is where this Jupiter elevates you to understand how you can expand your horizons and expand your horizons at three levels: mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. And it's important to know because I've called out physical expansion as well. Jupiter's presence in your chart, a solid Jupiter, can make you fat. Yes, it can make you obese, overweight. Jupiter likes to enjoy. He is going to give abundance with respect to food, with respect to wealth, with respect to prosperity. And wealth here doesn't necessarily mean only monetary wealth. Person is wealthy if they have a fulfilled environment within the family. You could be a millionaire, billionaire, but if you don't have somebody that you really care about to share that millions of wealth, money, it's you're not really wealthy. If you feel that isolation, that gap in life, then you are not really wealthy. But a good Jupiter can actually make you wealthy from all constructs of life. So it is important to understand that abundance, that expansion is what Jupiter will bring to life. He is going to expand your horizons from a physical perspective, from an emotional perspective. You will be more mindful. You will have senses of doing the right thing versus the wrong thing, not just for yourself, also for the others. That will set a higher benchmark for your morality. And that is why a good teacher has to be a moral teacher as well, at least in conduct with his students, his pupils. So a good Jupiter is going elevate you, take you to that level of spirituality, and if not spirituality, morality. To me, they are very similar. They are almost working in tandem, because a lot of times the leaning of spirituality goes towards religious connections too. But morality, I think, is the more human angle towards it. And you have to understand that particular construct as well, my friends. So this is what this Jupiter can do. It can, a good Jupiter can bring in a lot of doing good to others, charitable deeds. Remember, Jupiter rules the ninth house and the 12th house. For the Kalpurus chart, he rules Sagittarius and Pisces. So that empathy, that care, that charity, that donation, doing good for others, it naturally comes to Jupiter. And the sign of Sagittarius is that of a fighter, a Brahmin fighter. Means a fighter who is going to fight with principles. And here, a fighter necessarily doesn't mean physical fight. It could be the toughest battle that you are facing in your life, the toughest job interview, the toughest examination, the toughest situation in your marital life, in your love affair, in your relationship. It is going to be the dignity of Jupiter which is going to determine how do you stand tall in that difficult situation, my friend. This Jupiter thus impacts your marriage and relationships as well, because of its beauty with Pisces and the ability to take a fight with the Sagittarius sign. Those principles, those that moral compass that drives your values, the direction that you take in life, the places where you are supposed to say yes or no. Your say do ratio is determined by Jupiter. And one of the biggest remedies that you can do to your chart, if you are struggling with a bad Jupiter, a Jupiter which is in poor dignity, because you will struggle with a lot of things. If you are able to stick with your principles, if you are able to align yourself with your say do ratio, means there are 100 times you will say that I will do this. And are you accomplishing that 100 times? If you accomplish it, your say do ratio is 100%. But if you accomplish it only 50% of the times, you are a dicey character, and you understand how would the people see you, how would the world look at you. So this is where you have to understand that a strong Jupiter is going to direct your moral compass. It's going to improve your say-do ratio. And if you're struggling with that negative Jupiter, if you are able to force yourself, karma is in your hands. Remember, the bang opposite house to ninth house is the third house, which is your own effort, your own hard work. Everything is your choice there. So if you are able to align yourself to that, your Jupiter automatically will improve. This thus drives your marital relationship blessings for marriage as well. A lot of times you would have heard, if nothing happens, you're not sure about your birth date as well, just look into the transit and figure out what is the best position of Jupiter and get married. That is the muhurt you have to go for. And that is not wrong, actually. It's okay. Because one of the best muhurts are when Jupiter is aligned well. If you don't have exact details, if you are just able to figure out tentatively which year, which month you were born, you can actually lean on to this transitory judgment of Jupiter. And you would have noticed this, I call this out in my transit videos too, that depending on the position of Jupiter, right now, for example, it is in the sign of Taurus. For the people who have Taurus, Scorpio, Capricorn, or Virgo in their ascendants or seventh, they are good to marry, because that is where the aspects will be. That is where Jupiter is placed, and it is impacting those signs. All right. I hope that gives you a sense of what this Jupiter entails for you. And now we will go and do a deep dive to understand the placement of Jupiter in each house and what it means for you. But before that, I have a request. Can you please smash on that like button and subscribe to the Astrology? About 80% of you are watching the videos but not subscribing. I don't ask for that request quite often, At least I've quit doing so. But if you could please subscribe, that gives me a lot of motivation. It gives me a lot of pump up intent to make good quality videos and continue to do this effort. All right, let's get started. So, guys, when Jupiter comes into your first house, what you will notice is that as a personality type, you will have this ability or maybe the intent to advise people a lot. Most of the Jupiter Lagna people that I've come across in my life, I've noted this thing that they tend to give or counsel others a lot. And sometimes this can work in negative for you. It might not be in favor. Most of the times, your advice is going to be helpful because your Jupiter is giving an aspect to your seventh house, fifth house, and ninth house. Is very noted that your advice works for your kids, it works for your spouse, it works with respect to any kind of decisions that you are making based on your own defined principles as well. However, depending on the sign of, can create situation where people would be like, oh my gosh, this guy is coming with his advice yet again, with her opinions yet again, and that is mostly behind your back. So this is one of the negative connotations that gets associated with Jupiter, because you tend to know a lot about a variety of subjects. You have good knowledge cross topics, and that is why sometimes you tend to become expressive about what you want to share to the world. This brings another interesting factor to your personality, that you could, and if there is a good connection with the second or the third house as well, you could be a person who likes to talk a lot and express a lot. Most of the times, Jupiter in Lagna will give that ability as well, that you will be speaking a lot. And because Jupiter in Ascendant is a very strong possibility of a person getting into a profession that requires them to be a consultant, that requires them to be a mentor, a teacher. If you are in a tech industry, you will be leading a team. You could be advising your client as to what is the best approach to solve a particular problem. If you are in the medicine industry, you will be in counseling business. Surgery is a less of a probability. You'll have to look at Mars and Ketu in your chart. But you will be in counseling business. You will be able to understand the mental and emotional challenges of your patient and address that. Even in that, you could be in sales related work. You could be in banking industry where you have to leverage relationships and have a lot of understanding of regulations and protocols, compliances that have to be taken care of internationally and domestically. So you see how the professions are also panning out. You could be a professor in a college, a teacher at a school, and thus, because of your profession type as well, it is interconnected, folks. You will tend to talk a lot. You are a talkative personality some way or the other. Even if you consider yourself an introvert, you will have to express a lot with this Jupiter. The other thing that comes with this Jupiter is that it does give the tendency to consume a lot as well. Abundance also comes naturally. So, a lot of times, people with Jupiter in the Lagna itself could be obese or overweight. You will have this tendency to pick on weight, and that is why you'll have to figure out a way to work out as well, because usually Jupiter doesn't like to work out. In the ascendant, they are not gym freaks. You could prefer a yoga kind of an activity. You could prefer something different than hitting real steel. Now, I'm not saying that is not possible. You'll have to look into Mars. And when we talked about the Mars placement, I'm sure if you go back and check, it will give you an indication. But Jupiter in itself, in isolation, will not be able to do that. Yet, if any turbulence or problem comes ever in your life, somehow or the other, you will have that blessing of Jupiter coming in, saving you guys as well. You will have some sort of help, divine help, intervening in your life and supporting you. You could find a colleague of yours, some mentor, teacher, spiritual guide, your father itself, your boss, who would intervene and make sure you come out of that problem. And that is what happens with Jupiter. You are never short of money when you need to put your hand inside your pocket to buy that one meal. If you're starving, it will happen. You will never starve thanks to Jupiter. And even if that situation is coming in your life, your moral compass will be very high. Somehow you will manage it with your own principles. And this is the beauty of this Jupiter. But remember, I tell one thing to people that wherever Jupiter is placed, it tends to do a certain level of damage in that particular house. Because his aspects, unlike Saturn, his aspects are the ones that are more benefic. So, what you will realize with Jupiter in ascendant is that yes, it brings luck, it brings fortune, because he's the Lord of the ninth house. Fortune is coming to you naturally. But extraordinary amount of material gains are very hard to come with Jupiter in Lagna. You need support of the malefics. Not Jupiter alone can do that in the modern world. It tends to do less, it tends to give damage. Your advice is going to work better for the people that you're advising. Means your kid is going to benefit stupendously out of your advice. Your spouse or your bosses, your fatherly figure, they are going to succeed extraordinarily. So, if you are running your own venture, if you are running a business of your own, and you want to hire someone, hire a person who has Jupiter in Lagna, best employee, because he is giving that benefic ninth aspect to the ninth house. They are going to be fortunate for your business. I've given a big tip. I've saved consultations for many. Don't worry, I'm still holding a few of my sleeves. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is such an extraordinary thing because they are going to bring in luck for others. Jupiter and Lagna people are lucky for others. And many a times you will see that they are working in some sort of service. They are employed somewhere. And they tend to do well in their jobs as well. In ascendant, it's a fortunate position overall. Now, when we talk about the aspects, it is going to bring in good education to your life. At least you will do your best shot. You have to see your fifth lord and the planets placed in fifth aspects to there as well. That is why the other two, three playlists and series that you have to go and check and combine your readings. The aspect of seventh of Jupiter is going to give you a spouse which is spiritual. You are going to attract that sort of an energy where that spouse is into you. But the biggest benefit that you get is always from the ninth aspect of Jupiter, which is the strongest aspect in this case towards your house of fortune, house of destiny. Now, in general, you may be fortunate, but if you think you can do any kind of speculation, short change activities, under the table activities, and luck is going to favor you, unfortunately, this Jupiter is going to erode equally fast. And that is why people with Jupiter in the ascendant must refrain from any kind of malefic activities because you could be killing your karma way sooner than you can imagine. All right. Now we will talk about Jupiter in the second house. Jupiter in the second house is again a very beautiful and benefic position in general. First and foremost, you have to understand here that Jupiter is the natural karaka of wealth, abundance, growth, as we were talking about, as you would have listened into the first part of the segment as well. And if you have not, I'm pretty confident you are going to leave some comments and ask you questions because the folks who are not watching the videos in entirety are the ones who are asking questions that have already been answered in the video. But if you've already been through that section, you are going to enjoy this. Jupiter coming in here is going to give you, again, like the first house, tendencies to gain weight because Jupiter is going to enjoy good quality food here. He is irrespective of whether it is exalted or debilitated. It is going to make you enjoy food. And thus, because its aspect are also coming into your sixth house, eighth house, and your 10th house, you have to understand that it is going to be very important for you to keep a check on your medical issues related to food. Thereby, one of the biggest natural remedy for you would be to keep exercising or keep a check on how do you consume food. Diabetes related matters, stomach, digestion related issues, etc., can come with the placement of Jupiter in the second house. But this is also an excellent placement for you to combat any kind of issues which are coming with respect to your health because the aspect of Jupiter is always benefic. With the fifth aspect, it is going to ensure that you are able to overcome those problems. But before we jump onto the aspect bit, Jupiter in the second house, not only it makes you foodie, it also creates situations where you will be able to accumulate wealth. And I defined wealth at the start of the video. So if you have not, you've missed the entire bus. Please go back and listen to it. It is going to help you acquire wealth and not money. I'm not talking about money here. I'm not talking about your bank balances specifically. But it gives a good environment in general within the family. It gives the possibility for a person to have good relationships within the family. However, if your second lord is in turbulent situation, or the yogas are not falling in place with respect to the nakshatras in which Jupiter is sitting, then the ill effects of Jupiter in the second house can also come into play. It can also act as a badhaka if it is the owner of your 11th, ninth, or 7th house. And if you don't understand that construct, you will have to watch one of my badhaka, marka, karka videos where I've given that in detail. But in general speaking, what you will find is that this Jupiter creates an environment where you are very caring towards your family. You are very giving towards your family. You might not be able to extract the outcome as much for yourself as you might do for your family members itself. And it could come out in small acts of sacrifices at home. There is only a limited amount of food left. You are the one who would say, I'm not going to eat tonight. I'm not hungry. I'm famished anymore. Why don't you guys finish it? That thing I'm talking about. That last Oreo left on the plate and you just let it go to your spouse, to your mother, to your sister, or anybody in your family. Why? Because you want them to enjoy that bit. This is what this Jupiter does. It brings that ability to sacrifice something for the family. You will keep your priorities behind, or you will prioritize your family first. This Jupiter is also going to bring some charitable mindset, not really charity in terms of donating food, but charitable mindset in terms of food sharing habits. What do I mean by that? You are a person who likes to savor food. So if you invite someone at your home or somebody walks in, your intent will be to serve them equally or better quality food so that they enjoy your, and that makes you a very good host as well with Jupiter's placement in the second house. Wealth also does increase in terms of monetary aspects, but one way or the other, Jupiter has the tendency of creating a hole where he sits. He does better with his aspects when compared to where he's placed. And that is why I called out initially that you could struggle with some challenges related to health with respect to diabetes, any kind of digestion problems, any kind of known unknown issues with respect to family that could come into play. Now, the aspect of Jupiter is into the sixth house. If you have this Jupiter here, and if you are struggling with respect to, I think that is a wrong statement. You will not struggle most probably with loans, litigations, etc., because you will have the ability to overcome them. It is the malefics or the sixth lord that can cause damage and the dashas that can bring you in trouble. But Jupiter in itself will always try and make sure that he pulls you out of those issues. But your day to day habits might not be with strict regimen, and you will struggle there because Jupiter is not that aggressive by nature. Then Jupiter is also giving an aspect to your eighth house, which brings the probability of you being in a very good relationship with your in laws. It can bring you possible gains of inheritance. Some kind of will might be written in your favor by your dad, by your father, or from your paternal side, you have the possibility of some sort of inheritance coming your way. This Jupiter is also going to make you do research, understand new subjects and topics. Occult could be of deep interest to you with this Jupiter. But the best part of this Jupiter is the ninth aspect to your 10th house. This Jupiter is going to make you so knowledgeable and polished in your profession, in your karma, in your activities, that you could end up being a blessing for others with your actions. Now, this means if you are working in a job, you are going to help grow the firms that you work with. If you are running your business, your customers are going to flourish with your partnership. If you are a homemaker, the people, the family that you are serving, the activities that you are doing is going to help them grow in their life. And that is the beauty of the aspect of this Jupiter in the second house. Of course, there could be different combinations that could come in place with respect to conjunctions. We will be talking that in a separate series. But I hope this gives you clarity as to what happens when Jupiter is in the second house. Now, when Jupiter comes into the third house, this is a placement where Jupiter is coming into the first level of the Kama Trikon, the Kama trine of 3, 7, and 11. And Jupiter is giving an aspect to the 7th, ninth, and the 11th house. Now, this is an interesting placement for Jupiter, yet it brings a lot of challenges. Interesting, why? Because one, you have to understand that Jupiter is a planet which likes, which has soft qualities to itself, which likes to be in areas where it can disperse that emotional softness, that empathy, that kindness, those harness those relationships, and it has come into a place of hard work. Now, mind you, Jupiter doesn't mind hard work, but when it becomes a physical activity, that is where it becomes interesting because Jupiter struggles there. That is the reason Jupiter gets debilitated in the sign of Capricorn as well, and he gets exalted in the sign of Cancer. So when Jupiter is in the third house, you will realize that it is going to bring some levels of lethargy, some levels of procrastination, some extent of laziness to your behavior, to your character. Because the initial bit of Jupiter is going to be, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be working here. But it has another aspect to it as well. It is in the natural sign of Gemini. It is in the house of communication. It is in the house of expression. And that is where you will realize that this Jupiter can bring extraordinary abilities for you to share your wisdom, knowledge, broadcast to the world, showcase what you've actually acquired over a period of time. And that can be very, very transformative as well. Jupiter in the third house is going to bring you into professions that makes you travel in and around the city, and it is going to make you talk a lot, communicate a lot, express a lot. Marketing sort of professions can be also very much possible with Jupiter, along with sales. And the industries could be anything from banking to healthcare to technology. You guess it. So you could be a salesperson as an MR in the healthcare industry, or a loans seller, mortgage seller in a banking industry with the same combination. It's a beautiful placement from that perspective. But you would enjoy that career better if you are working in a branch office under an air conditioner and making sure your customers are interacting with you. The moment you have to travel a lot, do more strenuous activities, your success with this Jupiter tends to diminish and you struggle with that. More so, you have to understand third house is 7th to ninth, and sixth house is 7th to 12th. Both of these houses are opposite placements to where Jupiter finds happiness, which is his own house. So he is aspecting to a house where he feels comfortable, and he is exactly in the opposite side, in the opposite house, rather. And similar thing happens with Jupiter in the 10th as well, which we will talk in a bit as we reach there. But when Jupiter is sitting in the third house, what you will realize is that your relationships with your siblings, your relationships with your neighbors is going to be one where you have that forgiving behavior. You could just forgive a lot of mistakes. You could forgive a lot of, or maybe bring a lot of empathy in your relationships towards them. You would maintain a relationship which is almost 60-40, where 60% of the times you are the giver in terms of offering, servicing, helping, while 40%, 30% of the times you are going to be the receiver. So it makes you a giver in such sort of a relationship. Can also bring in situation wherein you could be residing in places that are close to place of worship. You could have a temple, mosque, church pretty close by to your place, and different places of worship could be in and around your vicinity. That is another possibility that comes because of the spiritual connection coming into the third house. Online teaching, online mentoring, online guidance is very much a possibility with Jupiter in the third house. Even if you are in any kind of e-commerce business, if it has an element associated to that of Jupiter, you will find much more success than otherwise. So I've given you another indication that a lot of times, many of you who've come to consultation, you've taken that advice from me about the e-commerce businesses that you guys are trying to launch. I think now wider set of people will have answered that particular question. Jupiter from here is giving an aspect to your seventh house. It's the fifth aspect. And interestingly, it brings abundance with respect to your relationships with displacement. Why does it happen? So you have to understand the three aspects of Jupiter are into those three houses, which can be seen as the first house of marriage, second house of marriage, and third house of marriage. So if a person has Jupiter in the third house, one, there's a very strong possibility this person could be highly romantic by nature. And it does bring the possibility, one, this Jupiter doesn't let you fail in your marriages. Usually it will sustain your marriage. But if one doesn't work out, it will give the possibility of the second or the third as well. So thus, surprisingly, it behaves contradictory to what it can do. It can not only save marriage, but also give possibilities of multiple concurrent situations. Now you have to look at the seventh lord, ninth lord, Saturn's placement, aspect of Ketu, and a bunch of other things that we keep talking to our analysis. But this is an interesting insight that comes into play with Jupiter in the third. It gives a benefic impact to your seventh house from a business perspective. If your business is struggling, if your partnerships are struggling, Jupiter's aspect here saves a lot of things. It gives an aspect to the ninth house. It is a wanting aspect. It's a happy aspect to the ninth house. So a lot of times you will see that the relationship with father, with bosses could be tricky. Yet there is a mutual respect. There is a moral compass that is aligned. You could actually either be in complete misalignment in terms of the principles and the values that your father could inculcate, yet you might want to practice your own. Or so would be the case with respect to decision making with your bosses. This Jupiter, though is in a turbulent spot, it will give hope with respect to your destiny, with respect to fortune. And as you grow older over a period of time, you will see it is going to enhance and improve. Jupiter's aspect to the 11th is the most important one because it's the ninth aspect and the most powerful one. And this is where you will realize that your relationships, your network, your connections, your desires are bound to grow. And Jupiter is going to play a critical, pivotal role to help you achieve that. You will never be short of people, connections in your life with this aspect. And if your desires and objectives are right, no matter how weak your Jupiter is in terms of Ashtavardha score, in terms of Shadbala, it is going to do everything within its capacity to help you achieve your objectives. Your moral compass should be right. All right. I hope this gives you clarity with respect to Jupiter in the third house. So, guys, when Jupiter comes into your fourth house, remember this is the house which denotes the natural placement of exaltation for Jupiter. And that is why a planet that talks about higher moral compass, a planet that talks about spirituality, about empathy, about donating, charity, principles, when it is coming into the fourth house, which is naturally ruled by moon, of course, he is bound to become exalted in that placement. But we are not talking about Jupiter in Cancer right now. We are talking about Jupiter's placement in the fourth house, irrespective of its sign. And thus, this becomes a very important placement for Jupiter because now you are going to realize that you are going to have a mindset, an emotion, a personality which is naturally caring for others, which naturally tries to be a benefactor to the larger community, to the larger society. This placement of Jupiter has its aspect which is very external as well as internal. Why do I say that? It aspects the eighth, where it wants to do the research. It wants to go into the depth of what it can discover inside, whilst discovering everything outside as well. And then it also aspects the 12th, which can take you into the path of spirituality, both internally as well as externally. It gives an aspect to the 10th house, which is to the entire world towards karma. But when Jupiter is sitting in the fourth, it is sitting on your throne. Benevolence, kindness, empathy is sitting on the throne. Jupiter is an amplifier, he's an expansionist. Just like Rahu got those qualities, but this one is more of an expansionist from positive set of activities, from kindness perspective. So you are going to have a big heart. You are going to be naturally caring for others. And yet you will work towards building your own assets as well. You will work towards building your own empire as well. But the kind of impact you can have towards the larger world, larger society would always be more than the material gains you will draw for yourself. This is the interesting part with Jupiter. Here it is going to give a very principled relationship with mother, or your mother herself could be a very principled, high moral value person. You could have aligned your compass, your moral compass with your mother itself, or through her mentorship, her guidance. In fact, both of your parents, even your father, could have similar traits, because Jupiter is the natural lord of ninth. So that tendency, that bonding is very natural to come in you. You could have a high intellect. Your ability to grasp a lot of knowledge around different subjects will be extremely high. How much of that you are able to utilize for your own material gains is something to think about, is something to ponder. But it will give you the tendency to learn a wide variety of subjects. You will have knowledge in depth. You will have natural wisdom, natural gravitas in you. You are not one of those people who will jump into conclusion. You would want to weigh your options and give the best thought forward. And it will reflect in your actions. It will reflect in your deeds. There are so many people who make some small charitable contribution, some donation, and then they go and beat the trumpet around the world that what remarkable stuff they've done with their CSR activity, with their charitable deed and stuff. But you are not one of those. You are the folks who would act upon it, and you will think before acting that what is the most meaningful way I can contribute. If I see a homeless person, should I be giving them a couple of dollars, or should I be buying them food or maybe a jacket to save them from cold or from hunger? You are the people who think a step ahead for the people, for the community. That is what this aspect of Jupiter to the 12th house, the ninth aspect, is going to bring to the table. You are going to be naturally having that depth in you, that level of consideration, care about situations, about people in general. It makes you a healer as well for this reason. And very importantly, you could have a significant role of this ability to absorb things from others and then express them, guide them, mentor them in your profession too. It makes you a remarkable psychiatrist, could make you a good advisor, counselor, mentor, and your profession will have some level of knack around it. There are so many times you notice there are these teachers who are running those extra classes beyond the stipulated hours and stuff. Lot of times you will see the placement of Jupiter in the fourth or the 10th house as well for such people. Then this Jupiter also brings you the tendency to research the occult, to research the unknown, to go into the depths and figuring out what kind of answers you need to find. Your children in general could also have similar tendencies. Creativity will come naturally to you, not only in Jupiter in fifth house, but also in the fourth. You have a way to look at the box from outside the box. That outside the box thinking that we keep talking about, this Jupiter gives you that mindset. Your mother could be very fortunate, lucky person for yourself, or you could have been the person who has enhanced her fortune, her luck post your birth. You need to have that conversation with your mom. Let's figure out who's been luckier for whom. But that possibility definitely arises with this. Last but not the least, this Jupiter will also give you ability to rise from a healthy mind perspective. Like you will have very strong levels of determination, very strong levels of perseverance, willpower to fight adversities. Your mind will be strong, let's just say in general. Even if you have a debilitated moon in your chart, but if Jupiter is in fourth and somehow it forms a connection 759, and even if not, but if Jupiter is in fourth, it is going to be a savior for that turbulent moon. All right. Now we will talk about Jupiter in the fifth house. Jupiter in the fifth house is like coming into the natural house of ownership for Jupiter, just like the second house. He is the one who's responsible for creativity, abundance, knowledge, education. And fifth house, it signifies primarily your education, your graduation. So Jupiter's presence in the fifth house, one, it gives a very strong promise of a person accomplishing good education in life, or at least the ability to translate their knowledge and culminate that for your gains to a certain extent is definitely possible. What do I mean by that? You might not have had a formal training for stock market trading, but you've acquired that knowledge by your sheer perseverance. And now, this Jupiter fifth in the house is going to give you the ability to make the right trades at the right time without speculation. The Jupiter is here is going to do that to you. Yes, it does give a promise of good graduation. Your university selections could be one of the top notch universities in wherever you are based out of, in your vicinity, in your city, in your country. But even if that is not the case, your ability to acquire knowledge and make good fruition. See, fifth house is not just the university degree, it is the fruition of your knowledge coming into action. And Jupiter gives the ability for you to do that. You might have just done apprenticeship in finance and you end up being a very strong finance professional, even though your CFA levels are not completed yet. Maybe you will complete it much later. Your ninth lord is going to tell in which dasha you are going to do that. You understand how the dots are going to get connected. So you might not have had the best education in terms of finance from the college degrees or whatever, but you have equipped yourself through your apprenticeship, through your internships. You've slogged yourself over the course of the period within a particular institution, and then you've acquired the knowledge. Execute that at your profession, in your career, because Jupiter from here is also going to be aspecting your 11th. Remember that. It is going to get into bring you relationships that are going to have that level of positivity, that level of piousness. This Jupiter is not a flirt. Now, I don't mean to say that you cannot flirt, but this Jupiter here is going to be the one, unless and until Rahu is in conjunction, forming Guru Chandal Yoga and doing some mysterious stuff here. We're not talking about that sort of a placement, folks. We're talking about Jupiter, just Jupiter's impact in the fifth house from a romance perspective. It is going to bring in a tendency where you are more of a giver. You care more about your partner. You try and satisfy their needs first before you keep your priorities. Remember, this is also the house of your children. So, child progeny becomes positive. Challenges can come with malefic aspects of Ketu and Saturn. Again, that is not being discussed in this video at this point in time. We'll do separate discussions on that. But Jupiter here is going to give you kids who are going to be interested in good education, who would want to pursue education. Many a times, you yourself or your kids could get education in a foreign country through a foreign university, graduation, post graduation, high probability that that can happen because it's the natural ninth and 12th connection. Remember, so that bit will also come into play. From here, he is going to aspect your ninth house. So Jupiter is placed in the house of past life karmas, pending karmas, punya. And from there, he is going to impact your moral values, your moral compass, your principles, or probably the one which is going to be the karka for next life, the fifth house, the fifth aspect, sorry. And thereby, it brings traits of what I was talking in terms of you being aligned very strictly towards your values. There could be your religious beliefs. It could be the compass that you've got aligned from your father or alignment with respect to your bosses. And thereby this Jupiter becomes extremely critical. Again, it's a very good placement for somebody who is in a job sort of a situation, because the aspect to the ninth is going to be benefacting for the employer that you work for. Jupiter from here is also going to be giving an aspect to your 11th house. So it will play a positive role in terms of influencing your goals and desires, as long as they are Jupiterian by nature, they are benefic by nature, they are aligned with the right values. Now, I'll take a very simple example of it. You have a wishful thinking that you buy an XYZ semiconductor stock and that skies in a few months and weeks. And that is your desire at one side of the spectrum. Whilst on the other side of the spectrum, your objective is to acquire the right knowledge so that you can make right functional and technical calls for investment strategies. Which one do you think is going to be better aligned for you to get help from Jupiter? Of course, the latter, because Jupiter wants you to learn. He wants you to grab that knowledge and then flourish that in terms of your outcomes. But the beauty of this Jupiter is because it is sitting in the house of Punya from past life karmas and with its ninth aspect, giving an aspect on you. You are a very meticulous person who has this benediction from God. It's stronger than the placement of Jupiter in the Lagna itself. Yes, you will put on weight, that tendency will be there, but you are going to have this stupendous benediction from the Almighty, from the Supreme, that no matter what situation comes, you will have that invisible power sucking you out of that problem and throwing you in a much better spot so that you can continue your fight. And that is why I love this position of Jupiter. It's a beautiful position of Jupiter because it gives you that unknown divinity, that unknown support coming into your life to make things happen. All right. Now, when Jupiter is in the sixth house, remember when we were talking about the third house, I was talking about the complex positions of Jupiter. Again, when Jupiter is coming into the sixth house, it is coming bang opposite to its natural ownership. Jupiter owns Sagittarius and Pisces. So, in a way, he owns the ninth, 12th house. And now he is coming bang opposite to where he would want to be. So, naturally, Jupiter is not comfortable here. He's also into a house where he has to be significantly spending his time, effort, energy. Jupiter, which is a benefic planet, has to do that machoism to fight out and make things happen from a daily schedule perspective, from health and regimen perspective, from loans, litigations perspective. That fight is not what Jupiter always enjoys. It's the natural house of Virgo, it's a natural house of fight. Yet, the Jupiter will try and give the best he can to help you out of this situation. Now, there are certain actions that are required from you. Remember, third house is your efforts, which is opposite or builds what ninth house has to deliver. And the ninth lord can only do better if you are able to give it certain impetus. What do I mean by that? See, Jupiter sitting in the sixth house is giving an aspect to your karma, to your 10th house, your 12th house, and your second. If you are able to somehow force yourself, because this Jupiter is seventh to itself, okay, and it is 10th to itself as well from the ninth house perspective. So if you are able to push yourself with that regimen, with that schedule, you will find the benefic impacts of Jupiter coming into play. However, the most challenging part is, like Jupiter in the third, this can make you a bit cranky, lazy, procrastinator. You want to push things to the next bit, which is not something that's going to bear positive results for this Jupiter. This Jupiter can bring you into professions that are related to medicine, that is related to mortgages, banking industry, even food industry for that matter can work out with Jupiter in the sixth house. You could be in fields of law, family law, divorce attorney for that matter. But and the other strong probability that comes, you could follow the footsteps of your father with this position. You could align in terms of your career being in the same stream like your father or family would have been. However, you have to understand, if you are not supporting this Jupiter with your own actions and karma, it is going to struggle. You could struggle with respect to ailments. Some or the other medical emergency will keep coming. Some or the other challenges with respect to any kind of litigation, any kind of tickets coming in from the government, some kind of penalties, fines, some or the other obstacles, some or the other troubles keep coming your way. And the best remedy for you in this situation is to fight that procrastination. And yes, it will take time. But remember, this Jupiter is also giving a beautiful aspect to your 10th, means it is like a catalyst. If you provide a spark to it, if you provide some energy to this Jupiter, is giving an aspect to your house of karma. He is going to fuel it back in you. And he's going to give you that strength to do more, to fight more. The Sagittarius energy of Jupiter is going to come out then. And that is what you need to do. And that is why I'm telling you a natural remedy. It's a mindset shift, guys. We have to learn to rule our planets. If you are able to bring that shift in you, the impact on the karma is going to be positive. It is going to help you grow in your job, in your career, in your profession. He is sitting in the house of jobs. You are going to do jobs that require your intellect, that require sharp thinking, brainstorming, guidance, mentorship of some sorts. He might as well be able to take you to a broad place, to places that are of that of isolation because of the aspects of the 12th. But there is a very strong possibility that again with this Jupiter, you will get opportunities to work far away from your birthplace, from your birth town. And more often than not, I've observed away from your country. I will omit the situation of large countries. Say if you are in US, Brazil, Argentina, China, India, Canada, those large masses, Russia, then the possibility is you could end up working within your country in a different cultural zone. Yet it will have the probability of taking you, which is a long distance movement from where you are born. The possibility is immensely high with this Jupiter, immensely high. At least once in your life, you will have to take some sort of a project assignment where you have to go and settle away from your place. It might be a good call for you. And this Jupiter has a very strong benefic impact to your second house. This Jupiter is the one that can, if you are able to fuel this Jupiter with the right effort, time, energy, regimen, schedule, fight your laziness, you will realize that this Jupiter is going to reward you with good amount of savings, growth, money, bank balance. It is going to create happy situation for you and your family. It is going to reward you with positive outcomes, but there will always be one thing that will be missing, the missing key with one or the other aspects of the sixth house where he's placed. All right. Now, we will talk about Jupiter in the seventh house. This is a placement which is not considered great by many. And the reason this happens is that Jupiter's placement in any house, wherever he goes, it tends to do slight bit of damage. And thereby, this Jupiter can bring the risk of challenges within your marriage or challenges to your spouse, to the longevity of your spouse itself. There can be problems associated with this Jupiter because Jupiter is more outwardly thinking. He wants to do good for others. And thereby you will realize that exactly opposite to what we were discussing about Jupiter in the first house is going to happen with Jupiter in the seventh, where it is coming into the ascendant of your partner. You will end up attracting a life partner who, or a business partner for that matter, any kind of partnership for that matter, where your partner is more of an advisor, is more of a commentator, more of a person who has some sort of knowledge, ability to guide others, counsel others, and more importantly, counsel you. Your partner is going to be the one who will have tendencies to put on weight, or post marriage, it can reflect upon you as well. Many a times you will notice with placement of Jupiter in the first or in the seventh, people tend to put on weight post marriage, and it is very hard to shed off. This is what this Jupiter can do for you. So, Jupiter in the seventh is going to bring in certain tendencies with respect to higher level of thinking, higher level of spiritual bonding can also come into play in your relationships, in your partnerships. Some sort of moral compass, some sort of principle alignment will be there with this placement. It is also important for you to understand that your father could have some sort of tricky, critical role in terms of your marriage happening, materializing. This is a good placement if one is getting into businesses, careers, profession that require you to be in knowledge based businesses. Any kind of information based, wisdom based businesses are going to be extremely positive for this native. Tends to bring in expansion. It tends to bring expansion with respect to the affairs of the seventh. Means post marriage, there is a possibility of expansion within the family in terms of growth, prosperity, wealth. So, generally, while there are certain tricky situations of Jupiter being in seventh, you will notice that the advantage is that there will be a growth in your stature. There will be a growth in terms of respect, acceptance from the community, from the society, because your general status is going to rise. This placement will also bring in level of fortune. Luck will start favoring you post marriage. You will find that somewhere or the other, there will be a considerable shift, improvement in your life through this. But there will be some level of, or I should put it in terms of remedy. People with Jupiter in the seventh ideally should not be disclosing much to the world. They should try and keep their marriage, their relationship in secret. Because in a way, it is a eighth movement as well of that spirituality, of that higher expression of Jupiter coming into the marriage. So the moment you disclose it, gets lost, it gets in a turbulence. And that is why people who are having this combination must actually watch out showcasing too much of a success on Instagram, on social media, and collecting those likes, because it is going to attract a lot of negative energy as well towards you, towards your family. Now, the other bit that you will notice is that a lot of times people advise that if you have Jupiter in the seventh, you should avoid being too spiritual or religious for that matter. There's a reason they come with that mindset, because they assume that this Jupiter doesn't bring in the sexual compatibility with your partner. But actually, it is the lack of truth, lack of understanding there, because at the end of the day, bed pleasures can also be seen from Pisces. Jupiter rules that. He is the Karka for progeny. And if Jupiter is coming into the seventh house, wisdom is coming along, but it is coming along through your partner. So, thereby, spirituality, religious mindset is very important. You must not refrain. Do not listen to idiots. If you think I'm an idiot, you can please ignore this, but please understand the logic behind it. It has to be a compatibility between you and your partner. That journey should not be done in isolation. It is a collective journey. You have to do that together. And that is what is the key point I wanted to highlight with Jupiter's presence in the seventh. From here, he's giving an aspect to the 11th. Again, your partner and you yourself post marriage will have a very strong network. You guys will chase your dreams together, your ambitions, your desires together. It will give an aspect to the Lagna, which means the partner will have that coaching mindset, guiding mindset, instructive mindset towards you. And it could also bring tendencies of laziness, procrastination, both in you and your partner. And that is something that becomes tricky with this placement, because this is a place where Jupiter is trying to complete what is incomplete for itself. It's the other half, the better half, probably for you. But travel becomes important, brings the possibility of you traveling to foreign countries. Lot of weekend getaways, short distance journeys are of strong probability, gives good connection with your own siblings post your father. It's the ninth movement. It gives a strong connections to your siblings as well, especially if they are younger to you. Even the elder siblings, you will have a good bonding and connection, but it is much stronger when your siblings are younger. Remember, it's the ninth aspect, which is a much more positive, strong aspect for you. And whilst there is a degree of procrastination and laziness, if the work is associated with respect to the significances of Jupiter, you will be able to depict extraordinary amount of hard work to accomplish your goals and desires. That is the beauty of this Jupiter. So you have to figure out what your play is and where you want to play. And you will see success coming with this Jupiter as well. All right. Now, when Jupiter is in the eighth house, guys who have been following me for the last couple of years or the last few months, you know that Jupiter is the only planet that I am okay with coming into the eighth house, because usually I do not appreciate the turbulences, the challenges, the obstacles, because there's so much unknown, so much of transformation sitting in the eighth house that I'm not comfortable with most of the planets, especially the luminaries. And I'm speaking with a lot of responsibility because, sorry, with a lot of responsibility because, like in my own family setting, I observe some of the charts very closely. But Jupiter in the eighth is the one position that I do not mind, or one planet that I do not mind coming into the eighth house. This Jupiter will definitely bring some or the other level of support from your father in your life. And what do I mean by support? Now, necessarily, it does not mean, or it may not mean, that your father might actively play a critical role in changing your life, or might be doing pretty well financially or economically. But the first and foremost thing is getting your father's blessing in life, getting alignment from your father for anything that you do is very important for you. In general, no matter what the situation of your father, they would be looking to bless you. They would want deep down to help you, to bless you, to act and do whatever in their capacity for your best good, for your best interest. So, some of the major decisions in life, you must consider taking their opinion. The other thing that you will notice is that there will be circumstances, patches in your life where you will be fighting some of the hardest battles of your life. But you will enjoy benediction of God. Somehow, it could be your father, it could be some unknown support, some blessing of the divine, your own courage, your own principles, your own self belief, your own moral values could be that compass, that indicator, that how you have to continue to fight in this situation and overcome this transformative scenario of your life. And there will be some difficult situations. And it is so interesting that many a times you will not even realize that you are fighting the toughest battle of your life. It's just that you're past that situation. You get into a completely different dasha, completely different period. And when you reflect back, you'd be like, wow, yeah, that was one tough nut to crack. How did I manage it? It's because of your Jupiter. Even if you have a debilitated Jupiter, like I know it is not easy, but debilitated, weak in dignity, Shadbal is lost. Even combusted Jupiter will try his level best to put a fight here in the eighth. And there is nothing better than Jupiter that you could ask for such a challenging house, for such a difficult placement. And that is coming from a guy who's ruled by Mars. You can imagine. Now, this Jupiter is also going to bring vast amount of knowledge in you. You are going to be equipped with information, with expertise, with understanding about subjects which are very hard to fathom for others. Maybe occult could be of interest, but doesn't mean necessarily that you become an astrologer with Jupiter's position here. It could make you smart in topics which are not explored by others. It could be not mainstream. And you will have the ability to speak in confidence, speak with confidence rather, about those subjects, about those topic areas. It can take you towards pursuing education and research, PhD education. One of the regular person who comes for consultation with me, I had to recommend that guy to go undertake PhD, and most probably he will embark on education, being a professor in one of the top US universities. He's just taken admission in November. Dude, if you're listening to me, hello. But the point I'm trying to make is that this will bring that innate level of expertise. You will carry that energy, that light in you to find the answers of the new. And it is the combination with different planets and signs which will tell you what would be that area of discovery for you. So, this position of Jupiter will bring new levels of research, new level of insight. You could benefit from your paternal side specifically, from any kind of inheritance, for some kind of will that is left in your favor, some kind of monetary gains. But more often than not, you will not count upon it. That is another interesting bit. Just like I was talking about Jupiter in the second house. See, when Jupiter is in the second house, let's say in exaltation, and it is giving a debilitated aspect to the eighth, you are going to waste that inheritance. And let's say if your Jupiter is in exaltation in your eighth house, and it is giving a debilitated aspect to your second, you are going to utilize it for some cause, but you are not able to grow it or save it with you. It will somehow squander away. And it's a very interesting thing because there are two charts which are coming strongly in my mind, and I've seen that happen to them. So you have to understand this Jupiter can also make you extremely curious about food. So, food as a business, food as something that you want to consume all the way to the level of gluttony could come into play. And yes, this Jupiter can then become a reason, like in the second and the sixth placement we discussed. It could be a reason for issues like indigestion, for diabetes, for other matters related to your intestines, to your liver. An afflicted Jupiter, by the way, can bring in situations of you consuming alcohol as well. Yes, not very often seen through Jupiter, but it is very much possible, especially if it is under the affliction of Rahu, not Ketu, or Saturn, malefic aspect of any of these, and bad dignity of Jupiter overall. But irrespective of all the potential problems that can come, this is one of the good placements of Jupiter when compared to any other planet. It can take you into professions that are on the back end side of things. So you could be in the banking industry, investment banking, but you could be in the back end of it. If you are trying to be a front end trader, you're not going to succeed. Don't even go for it. But back end, you will do pretty well. Behind the customer, behind the scenes. Insurance side, you will do pretty well in this space. Again, creating the models for insurance, you have to see the dignity of Mercury as well. It becomes extremely important with this Jupiter, right? Data science kind of professions are going to help you grow. Now, Jupiter from here is also going to be giving an aspect to your, not only your second house, which we've discussed from a food family perspective, it is going to be giving an aspect to your 12th house. Charitable deeds are going to be natural for you. And you would want to do them in hiding. The moment you do a lot of shosha, beating your own trumpet, it doesn't work out. And more often than not, you will not go about doing it that way. You would have your own approach towards it. It can bring deep interest in bed pleasures as well, hopefully within the confines of sanctity of a relationship. But that is a definite possibility with this Jupiter as well. Jupiter can be curious too. This Jupiter will also bring you the tendency to seek gurus and often find transformation within yourself and switch gurus over a period of time. You will outgrow your gurus, you will outgrow your mentors. So you will be able to encompass more knowledge from them, grow yourself to the next level, and then migrate to the next one. And it can also bring a very benefic impact to your fourth house. Your birth could be the reason for the growth of your mother in some shape or form. Positive things would have happened to the wealth of your family with your birth or the activation of dasha of Jupiter in your chart. Extraordinary amount of wealth accumulation is possible with this Jupiter. Jupiter in 8th can do that. It can give you a beautiful house, a very well kept, good looking, peaceful place can happen with Jupiter in the 8th house. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have, then please smash on that like button, guys. Now, when Jupiter comes into the 9th house, it's coming into its own house in a way. It's coming into a place where he is very much comfortable. It is in a place where Jupiter is going to give you the ability to define your own rules, your own protocols. And more often than not, they will be in alignment to your father, to your gurus, whom you've accepted by yourself. So, of course, your father could set the protocol in stone for you. It's highly possible that you will end up following the same, but you would still want to test the waters in terms of understanding what means what and how do you associate with a particular feeling before fighting for it in front of the world. There is very limited possibility of you switching into different spiritual affairs. You might be open to listening and understanding, but at the same time, you will put up a fight for your own belief system, for your principles. It is a naturally fortunate, lucky position. With Jupiter coming into this place, you will find that your father also could be very high in terms of their moral compass. Or you could be working with business leaders in your career, in your profession, or get associated with mentors, with gurus in life who have a serious influence on you, who set that high bar. in your life. And you will like to work with such kind of people itself. You will naturally attract people who set the bar high for themselves. They could have a different value system completely from you, but you value certain traits and aspect of a human's personality which would attract the likes for you. This Jupiter will bring the tendency for you to travel. Sometimes it gives the ability for a person to settle for work far away from their birthplace, as I was mentioning in the ascendant as well as the fifth house. It can bring the ability for you to pursue foreign education, especially your post grad education could come from a foreign land, from a foreign country, right? This Jupiter will also bring in possibilities of you being in a traveling job, you attending a lot of conferences, you doing a lot of communication related events in your life. Books, knowledge, wisdom, they will become the pillars or the core to your life. But the most interesting thing that happens is that there is a considerable amount of expansion, growth, abundance that can come to your father post your birth. And if not, it will come to your life either with the dasha hitting of Jupiter hitting in your life or with the activation of Navamsa. And remember, folks, a lot of you ask this question to me. Navamsa, to my understanding and my belief system, doesn't activate just by your marriage. It can get triggered post your marriage or even before your marriage once you have set the tone for your belief system in life. The day that is chosen for you, you will realize this Jupiter is going to trigger extraordinary amount of growth, extraordinary amount of expansion. Your knowledge, your quest for knowledge, your quest to do more with respect to expanding your wisdom, abundance in general, and towards hard work or towards putting in your hard work towards your goals is going to come into play. Why? Because this Jupiter is also giving an aspect, fifth aspect to your Lagna, to the ascendant, which means that somewhere or the other, just like with the seventh, fifth, and Lagna cases, you will find that somewhere or the other you have support of some unknown divine intervention. You are not going to sleep hungry ever in your life. You will have your moral compass aligned with you to achieve the objectives you want to. Makes you talkative as well. You will be good in terms of giving your advice, especially to your kids. Its aspect is to ninth aspect. The best aspect is to the fifth house. So your romantic pursuits, your education, again, and I would repeat it, most probably it gives a very strong possibility of postgraduate education in a foreign land or far away from wherever you are settling. That's a very strong possibility that comes in play. But it bestows you with great kids. Progeny is of positive strength for you. Definitely a possibility of one male child, if not more, comes with this Jupiter. Now, this Jupiter will also make you smart in terms of your investment strategies, in terms of your creativity. You can be good with respect to trading, not speculation. Remember, with Jupiter, it is not possible. But you can be a very savvy investor, very smart trader for that matter. And in general, your calls are going to be very helpful. So, guys, if you know anybody with Jupiter in ninth house in and around your vicinity, just ask them what should you be investing on. Their recommendation is going to be blossoming for you. This Jupiter is also going to make you travel a lot, but more often than not, you will find international travel, foreign travel, long distance travel coming into play than short distances. Now, we will talk about Jupiter in the 10th house. Jupiter in the 10th house is like the natural place of debilitation for Jupiter, even though people say that Jupiter is the Karaka of 10th and it is a great placement for Jupiter to be in. And yes, I do agree that at the end of the day, when the ninth lord is coming into the 10th, he is coming into the house of fruition, into the second place, which means it is the natural execution of dharma into karma. So it's a beautiful thing to happen. But at the same time, there are two challenges. Jupiter is coming into the natural sign of Capricorn. It is bang opposite to Cancer. And if you've not listened to the fourth house of Jupiter, please, you guys must listen to that bit as well. Okay. It is coming into that natural level of debilitation. That is number one. Second thing is Jupiter has a tendency to do better to the outside than to the place where it is placed. And that is why it becomes tricky for a person with Jupiter in the 10th house, because they tend to do a lot of activities which are not required. Sorry for my English audience, but people who understand Hindi, they will associate it very quickly. Khama kha. That is what this Jupiter does to you. A lot of times you tend to do unproductive activities which will not give fruits for your efforts, but they will be helpful for the others. And it is because of your generosity, your kindness, your good natured behavior that you tend to do a lot for public service, in public service. Even if you are in a corporate job, even if you are running your own business, you tend to do a lot of stuff for the benefit of others. And that is where you have to bring in that level of shrewdness, sharpness of Rahu, probably somehow from your chart, to counter the challenge of Jupiter's presence in the 10th house, because that is the reason I dislike it. However, it's a beautiful position because at the end of the day, it's the culmination of your dharma in your karma. That's a beautiful thing from that perspective. Means you are going to bring high value system into place in your place of work, in whatever you do. You will not be a person who's a cheat unless and until you have a majorly affected Jupiter here, sitting with malefics, debilitated, whatnot, then you could get into negative set of activities. But more often than not, 95% plus cases, I can vouch that you will be a person who would want to bring that level of honesty, integrity, value system into play in the way you approach things. You are generally good with your work. You are generally good with people around you. And that is a very strong strength that you bring to the table. But when it gets overdone, that is when people abuse you, misuse your kindness, your generosity. At the same time, this Jupiter makes you extremely knowledgeable about your subject. You have a very strong understanding, a very strong grip about the subject expertise that you will bring to the table. You will be highly successful in any profession for that matter. Teaching can be a very good profession for you. Outside of that, you could do well when it comes to any kind of business, any kind of knowledge based business, any kind of counseling, mentorship, consultation, consulting, running people led organizations, leadership positions that involve you to run large number of teams, all of that. And even in individual contributor roles, you will have magnanimous amount of expertise in very niche areas. You could be an architect. Now that is an individual person role, but an architect is so important whether you are building a software or you are building a house or you are designing the landscape of a city or a community for that matter. Imagine. So that could be a single person role as well, if not leading a team. But the wisdom, the amount of knowledge that is required becomes immense. And that is why it becomes a very good prospect from that perspective. You will bring that level of commitment in your marriage, in your relationship as well. 10th house is fourth to the seventh. The peace of your marriage will come with that level of communication, that level of interaction. But you have to be wary of being misused, abused by the world. There are so many political leaders who have a much charming mindset, positive attitude towards what they want to do in terms of transforming the society. But then there are people who sideline the main guy and usurp the throne. It has happened in multiple countries. It has happened in Argentina. It has happened in India. One of the guys usurped the entire transformation movement of a country of a guy who's rock solid. And this guy, with all his clever mindset, and many of you would know who I'm alluding to. I was myself fooled by that guy with the promises that the guy made. But the point I'm trying to make is 10th house is the representation of what you can do from your value system for the community, for the masses. And a good person could be one who's having that Jupiter, but gets used by the crooks around. So you have to be careful with that Jupiter in the 10th. From here, the Jupiter gives an aspect, fifth aspect to the second house. It will bring the ability for you to enjoy food, family, outing, relationships. But it is important for you to know The ninth aspect is much stronger than the fifth and the seventh. You will have to keep a watch on your weight. You will have to keep on a watch because it will give you the tendencies of sweet tooth as well. But in a way, the natural aspect of Jupiter will be an exalted aspect towards the fourth house. And this is where you will realize that no matter how rough the situation gets when it comes to your karma, your work, or whatever you're doing in life, it is that home environment of yours where you find that peace. You like that certain degree of isolation, being with yourself. You feel fulfilled in that environment. Family is going to be very important for you guys. And one of the key remedies for you is that yearn or learn to yearn towards your family. Go and spend time when you are in one of the most painful situations in the external world. And you will see how conducive an environment you will find at your home. You will create an abundant savings growth with respect to your assets. And more often than not, your daily regimen, schedule, discipline will be intact. This Jupiter is going, because of its ninth aspect to the sixth, it will help you fight diseases, it will help you fight any kind of loans, litigations, problems coming your way. And you will use your brain. You're going to use your wisdom, your creativity, your knowledge, overcome those challenges in life. It's a good placement from all that perspective. All right. Now, when Jupiter moves into the 11th house, Jupiter is coming into the highest trine of Kama Trikona. It is coming into the house of desires. It is coming into the house of networking, friendships. And if this is in a female's chart, more often than not, you will find that your husband is going to come through some sort of networks. It could be online dating, it could be friends of friends, it could be connections of some sort, it could be past connections from your educational world, from your college, from your school. Some way or the other, you will find your spouse connection, your husband connection through this, specifically for the women that I'm talking about, assuming you're straight here. If you are bi or other orientations, let's just consider it neutral and we'll have to look at from a general predictions of Jupiter here. But I've seen now this happen in multiple situations where it can create scenarios where you could have some sort of foreign connection as well with your spouse. Either they are settled abroad or post marriage, you go and settle abroad, or you get married to a person who is from a different background itself. Rahu also has to play some role there. But now, talking about not just women, but everyone, Jupiter is coming into a place where he is going to embark upon your goals, your wishes, your fulfillment, your regular stream of income. And the first interesting thing that I observe, and I keep repeating this, wherever Jupiter goes, he tends to bring certain level of discouragement, dissatisfaction versus what he's aspecting. It's not that he's going to do anything negative, mind you. So when Jupiter is coming into the 11th house, you will find that there will be some sort of struggle, there will be some sort of challenge, some sort of hard work with respect to you achieving your goals. It is not going to happen in the first instance. And Jupiter would want to see that are you following the right path? Are you aligned with your moral compass to achieve your objective? It becomes very important with this placement of Jupiter. It can bring in some levels of disharmony, challenges with respect to the health of your father as well. It is sixth to the sixth and third to the ninth. Your father could be a self-made person as well, or they could have seen growth coming in post your birth. Now, this doesn't mean, guys, that you were born and a month later he got some promotion. Some smart people ask me that question as well. Yes, it is possible, but then you have to look into the dasha. I'm telling you the promise in the chart. The dasha is important for things to materialize. I hope you get clarity of that. Now, this Jupiter is also going to bring you in contact with a lot of people. It is going to increase your social circle because remember, Jupiter is an expansionist. He grows. He is a gaseous planet. So you are bound to have a large circle of friends and they will continue to evolve over a period of time based on your evolution as a person, based on your age, your growth. It is not that you are going to carry a straight set of friends like Saturn would have done here. So Jupiter is going to help you evolve, and the higher you grow in wisdom, you will start weeding out the people that you don't need and the ones that you would attract for the next stage of your evolution. That's the beauty of this Jupiter. It will definitely bring in some level of gains, connections from a foreign angle. That is a very strong probability. Or you will find gains through spiritual means or religious means. This Jupiter can also heighten your desires, especially with respect to sexuality. It makes you a romantic at heart. Remember, this Jupiter is giving an aspect, ninth aspect to your seventh house. Beautiful. That's a very good thing to happen because it does make a very strong prospect with respect to marriage, with respect to business partnership. If you are running your own business and you are trying to expand, this is the placement of Jupiter that you would ideally want. It brings tremendous growth to your business endeavors. Sitting in 11th, giving a ninth aspect to your seventh house. At the same time, it is going to bring in prospects of good marriage if Jupiter is in good dignity. Aspect of Jupiter to your fifth house is going to be good from your romance perspective. You are not most probably going to be a multi-timing person. You are going to be ethical in terms of your dating standards, in terms of your romance. Your pursuit towards your education, your knowledge will also be to acquire the right creativity, the right skill. A lot of times, this Jupiter can take you into education which is related to Venus, like designing stuff, fashion designing, jewelry designing. Jupiter is going to increase your desire to have gold in life. It is going to bring that positivity through this placement as well. And the same time, this Jupiter is giving an aspect, fifth aspect to your, and thereby you notice that your zeal to put in your effort is going to be heightened when it requires your knowledge. Else, you are going to struggle. You are an advisor to your siblings, to your younger ones. Even in your community, people would consider you almost like an agony aunt. Some problem comes, you have the solutions for them. You can solve their problems. Just like Jupiter in the first house I was talking about a few minutes back. So overall, I think it's a very interesting, good position for Jupiter to be in. Gives a lot of benefits apart from the few challenges that we've discussed. Now, last but not the least, and probably the most important, Jupiter's placement into the 12th house. Again, unlike many would say, I like this placement of Jupiter. I like somebody who has Jupiter in the 12th. It is like a person having Jupiter in Lagna. Because most definitely, irrespective of the sign placement that Jupiter is in here, makes you as a good human. It makes you a spiritual human. It makes you a kind hearted, generous person in general. Now, remember, each of the placement can bring in certain negative traits as well. And we will discuss about this because Jupiter tends to burn the place where he sits. And that can be the tricky bit. If Jupiter here is sitting in a dignity, which is the 410 axis for that matter, or connection with 4 and 10, then you will see some or the other negative effects of Jupiter will also come into play. But in general, more often than not, this Jupiter is going to bring a lot of spiritual learning in your life. It's coming to its natural house. Your tendency to do charitable deeds for others is going to come to the fore. Your tendency to do activities like donation. And donation here can be seen not just from a monetary terms. It could be in terms of your knowledge. In a negative situation, it could be the donation of your fortune and luck. If you are not able to keep your act together, if you are not able to follow the principles of Jupiter, it might as well be an exhaustion of your destiny. It might as well be an exhaustion of your fortune. So imagine the turbulent situation of Jupiter sitting in Capricorn here. Or if it's sitting in exaltation as well, but it is giving a debilitated aspect to the sixth house, your daily regimen will not be disciplined. You will struggle with that bit as well. But 12th house is also 4th to ninth, and Jupiter gets exalted in 4th. You see how the connections are happening. So, being the Lord of Sagittarius, 4 places away, coming into Pisces is a happy position. It's a much happier position of Jupiter, and that is why Jupiter has been given the 12th house in the Kalpursh chart. So when he is coming here, that level of generosity, that level of kindness has to be there in a person. The other bit that you will notice is that it is not reflected in your character. It will definitely be seen in the behavior of your father, or the value system of your father could be very religious or very principle oriented. The other thing that we observe with Jupiter's placement here is, does bring capability for a person to again become a guru. More often than not, you could be a spiritual guru, you could be a spiritual teacher, or profession of teaching, being a professor in some sort of consultative business, counselor, is bound to happen more so into abstract subjects, abstract topics. Why? Because sitting from here, Jupiter being the lord of Sagittarius, and that connection with the 12th, it is aspecting the 6th house. So your career in itself could have a play there. This Jupiter can also take you to foreign lands, foreign countries for your work. There's a very high probability, at least once in your life, you will go and do some sort of activity, either a spiritual journey or a professional journey, work related travel to a foreign place, far away from your birthplace. At least that's what I mean to say, culturally different place from your birthland. From here, the Jupiter is going to be aspecting with a fifth aspect to your fourth house. And it's a good aspect because it helps you to add that value stream to your mindset, to your emotions, to your kindness. We discussed about what it does from a sixth perspective. He will help you overcome your problems, your challenges, your obstacles. But remember, when Jupiter is sitting in the 12th, there are unknown enemies and problems that are going to bind you as well. You will feel that obstruction. And that is the negative bit. You cannot escape it. It's a tough placement at the end of the day. 3, 6, 8, 12 are not easy placements for Jupiter to be. Yet I prefer Jupiter to be the planet in this case, in 12th or in 8th, when compared to anything else. But the ninth aspect of Jupiter, which is a very pious one, which is a very rewarding one, is coming into your 8th house. So the chances of inheritance, especially coming in from your paternal side, they're extremely high. Chances of you doing research of some sort, benefiting out of unknown situations, could be extremely high. You doing some sort of research, gaining out of that research, discovering something which is not known to everyone, and you find that information, you could use that information for your benefit, and that is also a high probability. But this Jupiter also brings the risk of losses in life, and you will have to see the larger placements. You have to watch the entire series from a house placement perspective, Lord of 12th perspective, Dasha perspective, to get a comprehensive understanding as to what this would mean to you. So, guys, this was my analysis of what happens when Jupiter is traversing across all houses in Vedic astrology. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have, then please smash on that like button, subscribe to Dev Astrology, and keep watching. Om Namah Shivaya.